It's week 2 in the NFL, and we've got fantasy questions. Should Keenan Allen get the red light against the Legion of Boom?
Washington versus Jacksonville. You overspent on Allen Hurns. Now what?
Why is Eli Manning?
And will Tony Romo experiment with throwing the ball to his own team this week?
These questions and more answered on this week's Fantasy War Room Live.
Pizza time.
Folks, welcome to the Fantasy War Room Live. I'm Matt Ufford, joined as always by Nick Stevens. How do you do, sir?
Good to see you again, friend. Big week in the world of fantasy.
Indeed it is. Week 2, probably the single most difficult week in the entire fantasy football season.
Is that because neither of us know who any of these people are that we're going to tell people to put on their fantasy teams?
Speak for yourself. I know all.
Isaiah Crowell. That's a made-up name.
I think it's because we have such a small sample size, the smallest possible sample size,
right,
that is a positive integer, and we are going to make these snap decisions that we only have week 1 games to base them off of. And even though we're going to say, hey, we can't just make decisions off of just 1 week, we're going to do exactly that anyway.
You just said something that got me thinking. You said we're going to make a lot of snap decisions. That would be a great name for an app where I could send you an idea for a move I would make on fantasy football, but it would only be there for 7 seconds before you could text me back and say, like, you're an idiot. Absolutely not. Here's what's so great, and here's what's so frustrating about.
Are you saying I will posit that Allen Hurns is the dick pic of fantasy waiver pickups?
You win. The show. We are 1 minute in, and you have already won the show. Go ahead, do it. I didn't know we could also say that on the air. That's great. Hey, whatever, right? It's the internet. Here's the thing. So week 2, we have the incredibly small sample size. It's just week 1. Plus, also, we're all given to the great overreactions to week 1. This guy didn't score enough points. I spent so much money on this guy in an auction. He didn't play for me. I was relying on this guy to get me through Monday night, and he burned me. It's just a week. It's only a relax.
I think that if we can have just one thing, if you're torn between player A and player B, and player A is the star player who disappointed in week 1, exercise patience. If you're just torn, like all things being equal, go with the guy that you know is the more talented player, is the bigger piece of a good offense. Don't get cute.
Right.
Don't get cute. It's week 2. It's long season.
It's a very long season. And look, there's a huge cleanup in aisle 7 in a lot of different categories because, like, running back, for example, has just become a complete. It took 1 week for it to become a complete tire fire. But if you do your homework and stick to your guns, we'll see you through it. That's what we're here for. We're going to help see you through it.
Yeah. Speaking of seeing those things through, we'll get to running backs a little later in the show. We're going to kick things off now with some quarterback rankings. These are not from any trusted source, but from Nick Stevens. These are Nick's rankings. I'm just kidding. You're a very trusted source.
Oh, actually, I prefer to be I prefer to be your #1 most untrusted source. Because why go to some website that's going to use stats, numbers, facts, and figures when you can just go with your old pal Nick and play a hunch?
Oh, no, your hunch plus whatever's in your gut is good enough for me.
Hunch and Gut, that's the name of my sports bar. Come by sometime, it's great.
It hasn't passed any safety regulations for some time.
No, actually, the sticker and the word, it doesn't even say grade pending. It's just a question mark.
All right, quarterback rankings. You've got Peyton Manning at home against Kansas City as your top quarterback. I think that's a very safe one. Aaron Rodgers had a very, very rough week 1 in Seattle. And now, I questioned you. You had him as your 9th quarterback overall in the week 1 ratings. And I was like, come on, it's Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, sure, it's the Seahawks. He was actually 27th in fantasy football points scored for quarterbacks.
How about that?
So, yeah, so I'll put that little feather in your cap, sir. And then followed by Andrew Luck in what we are expecting and demanding to be the barn burner of the week, the Monday night game, Philadelphia, Indianapolis Colts. Whew.
Safe to say that'll probably be, as I like to call them, that's your veritable all-start of the week. That's where just pretty much you can look at almost everyone and anyone involved at a skill position. It's like, yes, start them. Yes, good, yes.
Zach Ertz, Jeremy Maclin, LaShawn McCoy, Darren Sproles, Nick Foles. And then on the other side of the ball, T.Y. Hilton, Reggie Wayne, Trent
Wait a second. Hold on. We told you. Patience, don't get crazy.
Don't get crazy. Trent Richardson, that's hilarious.
That is so funny.
Back to quarterbacks.
Okay.
In between the two quarterbacks in that Monday night game is where I've got a little bit of a question mark here.
Okay.
And that's Colin Kaepernick at home in the Field of Jeans against the Chicago Bears. I don't know about making Kaepernick the 4th overall quarterback.
My reasoning for this was twofold. One, the Chicago Bears defense made the Bills look like a really good football team last week. And of course, Buffalo did most of the damage on the ground.
Yes.
And Kaepernick didn't have to do much beyond throw the ball to the people that had 5 yards of separation from the defensive persons last week in Dallas, which was real easy. He did most of his damage in the air. This may be one of those weeks, again, I got a feeling, and I've seen it happen before, particularly at home for Kaepernick, where he does his best work on foot, unless he's playing Green Bay, of course. This could be a week he might beat them with both foot and arm. He could have foot and arm disease this week.
Hand, foot, and arm disease.
Hand, foot, and arm disease. I have Chicago. It does not have. They have not addressed or solved their defensive woes, even though they imported a lot of high-priced talent. I see him posting a big night. It's Sunday night. The lights are on. Field of Jeans debut. Top 5.
I think that he's going to have a very good night. However, I don't think that translates to a bang-up fantasy night. This is a guy who, week 1, 16 completions, 11 yards on the ground. And this is a game where the Niners established control of the game first, had a couple short fields that might affect some of the yardage that he accrued. But mostly, this is, he and Russell Wilson are kind of like, hand in hand for me. They're the guys that are going to get you 16 to 18 points on a good day for either of them. And then they have, obviously, a much higher ceiling. But both of those guys are going to be like the number 10 quarterback for me most weeks. I think he's a little bit high for Colin Kaepernick.
Perhaps a little bit high, and considering that I've got Nick Foles and last week's number 1 fantasy quarterback,
Matt
who
Ryan.
I was very bullish on as well,
Yeah.
ranked number 6. I did actually, for a change, factor in the matchups and who the people were playing, and didn't just pull numbers. I didn't just go wife-picking Kentucky Derby, like, oh, I like that name. He should be the top 5. That's a good one. Kaepernick. I went to a college with a Kaepernick. I went to Kaepernick State. Foles could potentially outscore him. There is a high probability that Foles may vault his way even into the top 3 if Indy versus Philly is the shootout that we all think it's going to be and want it to be. But guys like Matt Ryan, he's on the road against Cincinnati. It's a much tougher defense.
Yeah.
Drew Brees, obviously, he should be a perpetual top 3 quarterback.
He doesn't play as well on the road,
outdoors,
particularly outdoors.
Cleveland's got a reasonably stingy defense at home. Someone's going to live on Hayden Island. That means he's down one of his top 3 targets.
Now, let's not oversell Joe Hayden. I think that he's at this point, like, he had a terrible week last week, gave up a touchdown, just generally was not playing like a top cornerback. And I think at this time, Hayden Island is really more of, I don't know.
An atoll?
An atoll. No, I'm trying to think of the right metaphor for it. When I see Hayden Island, I really get more of like a hedonism resort. It's getting by on name recognition more than anything else, and it's pretty easy to score. There we go.
Nice, there we go.
Took me a while to get there, but
did not mind going. I'll always go for a long walk, especially. That was both journey and destination. Now in the top, this is something I never would have thought of doing before, let alone actually marrying the two of them. Both Andy Dalton and Jake Locker are next to each other, and they're top 10 quarterbacks in my mind this week.
You know what? I actually, as terrible as Andy Dalton looked in Cincinnati last week, where if a defender approaches
he was in Baltimore. He played Baltimore.
Sorry, that's what I meant.
That's right.
The Ravens. Anytime I see Andy Dalton and he's got a clean pocket, he looks amazing. Anytime he's got a defender within 3 feet of him, he looks terrified and the ball goes nowhere near his intended target. When you have a team like the Falcons that has a pretty poor pass rush, I think Andy Dalton's going to be set up for a good game, especially at home. So I can't disagree there. And then Jake Locker looked fantastic in Week 1 on the road against a pretty tough Chiefs defense.
And now that's why we have Peyton Manning #1, because that Chiefs defense suffered two Derek Johnson and Mike DeVito are out, as if they already didn't have a bad enough week. I think Hurt Locker actually, maybe for the first time, he's getting coached the right way. Ken Wisenhunt, excellent coach. Justin Hunter and Kendall Wright, dependable wide receivers. They've got 19 different running backs they've promised to hand the ball off to this week. So he's got a full art. Complementary players like Dexter McCluster, who he can both hand off to and pass the ball to. And Mike Munchak built a hell of an offensive line before he got fired. They might be the sneaky good surprise, didn't know you guys were ready for the playoffs team.
I hope they are. I want nice things to happen to Jake Locker. He's had a rough go of things.
I want nice things. You know what? Seems like an upright gentleman.
The other after Colin Kaepernick, my other peccadillo with your list is Tom Brady at number 11.
I thought about even putting him lower.
I think you should.
How dare you? Removes glove, strikes face. How dare you?
Pistols at dawn, sir.
I'll see you tomorrow, Burr. Don't plan on being head of the Treasury for much longer.
Week 1.
Hamilton, whatever.
In Miami, 55 pass attempts to get to 249 yards. Let's crunch a little bit those. 4.5 yards per attempt. That is not elite, sir. That is not elite.
There was nothing elite about that.
And now they go on the road to Minnesota with a defense that, yes, the Rams are awful and are going to continue to be awful throughout the year, but that looks like a pretty good defense. And, oh, by the way, the new coach is Mike Zimmer, who is the architect of the Cincinnati Bengals defense. I think the Vikings might be for real, too.
Who held Tom Brady to 18 of 38 last year for 0 touchdowns and 1 interception. Mike Zimmer, the Cincinnati Bengals defense, and a 70-mile-an-hour gusting wind in the fourth quarter. Actually broke Tom Brady's touchdown streak. They thought he was actually going to beat Drew Brees, and he would have, but were it for not that one game. The Vikings, yes, they did look really good against a 13-car pileup that is the St. Louis Rams.
You say that, but it can be tough to get around those.
It really, really can be tough. Much like the Minnesota defense, it might be tough to get around them. Look, I'll be the first to tell you. These are all. I'm about to say all things true. The Patriots are 2-6 in their last 8 road games. They were horrible last week for most of, not just the second half. Miami turned the ball over 3 times in the first half. 2 of those arrived in boxes with cards from Amazon, saying like, "Enjoy this gift." You didn't even register, but please.
Same day delivery. Amazon's amazing.
Same day delivery. They're drone gift delivery. Tom Brady actually has not played a really good game where he's been a top 5 fantasy quarterback since last November. I went through the week 1 scoring rankings by position, and I was scanning through the page and I was reading and I was like, "Where's Tom Brady?" And I had to click on the next page after the top 25. You had to click on the next 25 icon?
Yeah, he was
Tom
number
Brady.
26th or 27th in fantasy points for quarterbacks last week. And Alex Smith, who threw 3 interceptions, was just like half a point behind him.
What company? What elite company?
So I'm actually I would if I owned Tom Brady, not only would he be on my bench, I would put him out front and not even be like part of a yard sale. I'd be like, $1 or best offer.
Wait, are you literally telling me that Tom Brady is now like he is now like the dresser that doesn't match the rest of the furniture? So you just put him out in the front and just say, "Take free"? For
me, Tom Brady is a QB2, like spot start against a weak opponent.
Wow, so he's the coffee mugs that don't even match the dinner plates.
Correct.
You've just dropped him off at the local Morgan Memorial.
Yeah, I have no use for him.
He's the dead grandma and don't tell mom the babysitter. You've got him in a box.
My wife has been giving me hell about that Tom Brady for months. I'm just going to bite the bullet this weekend. Get rid of it.
God. Yeah. What world is this?
And then finishing out the rankings, Matt Stafford, Robert Griffin III, Tony Romo, Jay Cutler. Matt Stafford had a fantastic week 1, obviously on Monday Night Football, playing against a Giants defense that actually has a pretty good secondary, or was supposed to anyway. And Calvin Johnson roamed freely. He made some great plays, scored a touchdown on the ground.
Actually looks pretty good too. He went 6 for 96. Possession receiver-wise.
I would say Matt Stafford should be bumped up these rankings a little bit more. Even with the Carolina defense, Greg Hardy is reportedly not at the Carolina facilities practicing with the team, so we could see something going on there with a disciplinary action or possibly releasing him. I don't know what's going on with that, but I would be banking on, for me, Matt Stafford is a top 5 quarterback pretty much every week until I see otherwise.
Ooh, I don't know if about top 5. Even though Greg Hardy's absent from the game this week, the Carolina defense still does have more teeth than most people are giving it credit for. And I will say that obviously Jim Caldwell has done a nice job with him getting the solid possession receiver with Golden Tate. Also a very nice move. Matt Stafford said he was going to put in a lot of work in the offseason, getting fit. He finally sort of looked like he lost all of his like natty light bro weight in his face. He doesn't look like he just went to a Georgia frat party.
Yeah, he did. It's like he saw, who was that former Lions quarterback who's on the game? Scott Mitchell. It's like he saw pictures of Scott Mitchell and was like, that could be me.
Wow, no, I can't. I have to stop watching Body by Fonts. I need to not do that anymore.
And let's wrap up quarterback discussion with Tony Romo and just say, Tony Romo, terrible week 1. I'm saying stay the course on Tony Romo for now. I know you don't like it.
I don't know. I fell victim. I fell victim to what the syndrome that they call in fantasy Romo's folly, where I thought, you know what, San Francisco's going to score. I'm going to start Romo because he's going to throw against that depleted secondary, and he's going to do a great job, and he did, of throwing it to them.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
Me. Not touching him.
Maybe a spot on the bench for a week for you. Let him cool off a little bit.
We'll talk to Tom Brady on the bench.
That's quarterbacks.
Fine.
Let's move on.
Yep.
Running back discussion. Your rankings at the very top. LaShawn McCoy against a very porous Indianapolis Colts defense. That's a no-brainer. I'm with you on that.
There's your 20-cent tip for the week.
Yeah. Adrian Peterson at home versus New England, which just got run over by Knowshon Moreno. Yep.
Gashed, sliced, diced. The Patriots defense was put into a Vegemix last week again. Knowshon Moreno, 24 for 123 yards. I mean, maybe he's got their number, but Lamar Miller also rattled off a quick 65 as well.
They made Lamar Miller look good.
Yeah. Oh, and now they're going against the best running back on earth. Oh, this is just... So, control room, bring the whiskey.
And then Monte Ball, Jamal Charles as your number 4. What a disappointing week he had. Andy Reid has stated publicly, like, hey, we should have gotten the ball to Jamal Charles more. Because do you realize that Donnie Avery got 13 targets and Jamal Charles got a total of 11 touches, 4 targets, which he caught every one of them, and then 7 carries.
How do you have one of the 3 most dangerous offensive weapons in all of football? He is he is your offense.
And it's not like the Chiefs were out of that game. Like for most of the game, they were still in it. They should. It blows my mind.
Unlike Andy Reid, Jamal Charles needs to be force-fed. It's true. It's just a fact.
It really is. It's not untrue.
You could shave the mustache and that. I mean, Andy Reid, Jared Lorenz, and Andy Reid. It's all.
At number 5, you've got Matt Forte. I like this one. The Niners, while obviously having a walk of things in Dallas, did allow DeMarco Murray to have, I believe, 118 yards and a touchdown.
Yep.
He looked good. The Niners clearly missing some of their depth on the defensive line, and of course Navarro Bowman. And I think that especially Navarro Bowman's their best coverage linebacker. Matt Forte catching some passes out of the backfield, I think, is a really good call for.
He had a classic Matt Forte week 1 against Buffalo. Also think about the fact that maybe Chicago, though they have solved some of their offensive line issues, could be under pressure, needing to make a couple of moves. Maybe you can't get Alshon Jeffrey. We'll talk about wide receivers later, obviously, but the wide receivers in Chicago are both a little dinged up. Forte is probably the best option. A lot of screens, a lot of dump off. Buying Jay Cutler time to try to get it together.
Yep. Moving down the list, Frank Gore, Chicago. Obviously, Chicago just got run over by Fred Jackson.
Old man Jackson with the big run.
C.J. Spiller had a pretty good game, too.
Yeah, he did.
And then, Frank Gore's good. A little bit of a concern about Carlos Hyde getting 50 yards and a score in his first NFL game, if I'm a Frank Gore owner. As a Carlos Hyde owner, I'm very, very happy about it.
Oh, I was thrilled.
Yeah.
Even in a losing effort on the teams where I have Carlos Hyde because of falling victim to Romo's folly. Watching Carlos Hyde just erupt for that 15-yard touchdown. Frank Gore had 16 touches for 64 yards. Carlos Hyde got 50 yards and needed but 7 carries and had both burst and smash. Like he looked fast and he was strong.
This is I think this is going to be a multi-week narrative arc where we're all being basically hashtag free Carlos Hyde. I think that's
time. Yeah, I can get that working.
All right,
I'm behind that.
Get it trending, folks. And then Le'Veon Bell, who was the #1 fantasy back in Week 1, is your 7th back. He's playing Thursday night at Baltimore. The Ravens did not look so fantastic in run defense last week.
Not so much at all.
They played the Browns, yes, and a series of.
No, they played the Bengals. Actually,
I'm so sorry.
The Steelers, the Steelers were the ones who were absolutely savaged.
Yes, I get my AFC North teams. They're all the same.
Well, you're the one who last week said, and I was the one sitting across from you who didn't disagree with you, that said if there was a chance you could go to a sports bar that only showed 28 teams, you would go there.
Yeah,
and that sports bar could just be called "We Show 28 Teams."
Yeah, or like minus the AFC North.
No AFC North.
Yeah.
at Hunch and Gut, we only show 28 teams. You guys should come by. It's great. Moving into the second half, I was impressed with DeMarco Murray. DeMarco Murray had a great week. Mm-hmm. I want to see a little bit more. The reason why I didn't put him a little bit higher is because I have a feeling that Tennessee's defense might be a little bit better than we think. Like, there's no reason the Kansas City Chiefs, as bad as they probably might very well be, should have only put up but 10 points in their home opener, even without Dwayne Bowe.
And that was with a late touchdown to get to 10 points.
That was with a gimme. That was with one of those spread-busting late touchdowns.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have thought that maybe he should have been higher. He's still an RB1, and he's still an absolute must-start, but I temper expectations. Rashad Jennings, not probably the only bright light, if you will, for the New York Giants in Week 1.
I'm in complete agreement. I was high on Rashad Jennings before the season, and I hope that this continues so that I can feel great about being right. But the people that disagree with me were like, oh, Andre Williams is going to get goal line duties. Nope, that's Rashad Jennings. And Rashad Jennings is the only part of the passing game that Eli Manning looks comfortable with.
Yes. Yeah, that's the only thing Eli Manning looks comfortable. Well, actually, no, he looks comfortable with several things: throwing the ball to the other team, going pouting on the sidelines like he realized his mom took his Fruity Pebbles milk and threw it away. He's not good at football anymore.
No.
Arian Foster got the ball a lot last week, and he's going to get the ball a lot again this week,
I was about to mention Arian Foster, I think, should be a little bit higher against an Oakland defense that definitely has some holes in it.
What do you think about, now, how do you feel about... Now, I've got James Starks on there because I'm not sure if Eddie Lacy's going to play. No one really knows. Eddie Lacy has been at the facility, came in for his appointments, seems to have passed the protocol, but we're not sure if he's going to play yet. I know it's still midweek by the time you watch some of this or listen later on. It could be closer to game time. If Eddie Lacy is in, I don't know if I'm throwing him right to the Lions because the Jets have a very good run defense versus a porous pass defense. Do you want to rush him back, or do you think that maybe a guy like Starks, who might be a better pass catcher, is the option for Green Bay?
I think that if Lacy plays, you play him. You used a first-round draft pick on Eddie Lacy. This is only Week 2. We said kind of stay the course for these stars. If he's cleared to play him because he's still going to get those reps. He's still going to get the touches. He will get a couple pass attempts his way. Go with Eddie Lacy if he's playing.
So a bump up with the Green Bay running back if Lacy's playing this week, which it looks like he might.
Elsewhere in your rankings, Mark Ingram had himself a nice game in Week 1, and I think that he's got a good chance of doing well. I think that I think Mark Ingram has finally figured it out. 4 years into his career, after being a first-round bust for several years, has finally become, I think this is the year that he's actually a reliable play.
So the 3 people that were sticking by the free Mark Ingram hashtag, their dreams have finally come true.
Yeah.
Look, he was more than a goal line back at Alabama. He was an every down back, and he was, really, really good at it as well. Maybe it was knee woes. Maybe it was just trying to find a niche role in Sean Payton's very intricate, layered New Orleans offense, where obviously he likes employing a number of different backs in a number of different ways. But maybe now he's found his role: power yards and goal line.
Yeah.
Look, if he's going to play the LeGarrette Blount role for them, if you will, and only get 50 yards but a touchdown at least every other week,
that's a play.
I'm starting him because there are probably fewer questions with him than I would have with maybe places like Detroit, where the Monday night they showed you, I don't know who's getting the ball.
Yeah.
8 points apiece to Joique Bell and Reggie Bush. Is this what we're in store for all season?
Yeah, that sort of running back by committee is just supremely frustrating. Whereas Mark Ingram, you're looking at a baseline of 5 to 6 points, and then the very good likelihood of a touchdown, because it's the Saints offense. And in this case, in week 1, 2 touchdowns. That's 18 points right there. That's a great flex play right there.
Right. Jimmy Graham's triple covered. Pat, give it to Ingram.
All right, we need to wrap up our running back discussion pretty soon here, but I want to talk about a couple names that are not on this list.
All right.
Namely, the hot waiver wire pickup for this week, Justin Forsett. The Ravens, I don't think we need to get into too much detail about their running back scenario and what's been going on this week.
What?
I think Ray Rice is no longer employed.
Oh, is he out this week?
And for the next couple weeks, too.
Good.
Yes, it is good. So Justin Forsett is going to get the start after Bernard Pierce fumbled in week 1. Forsett stepped in, 11 carries, 70-plus yards, touchdown. Looked really good. He's the starter Thursday night. I think he's a good play against a Pittsburgh team that gave up tons of rushing yards in week 1.
A lot of rushing yards to a bunch of people with made-up names.
200 yards to a team that was mostly comprised of rookie running backs.
To not Ben Tate, to not the running back everyone drafted. Oh, and by the way, it looks like Ben Tate may very well not be playing this week. That's why he's obviously
out.
Not.
Yeah.
So he's out. So now comes the Cleveland running back committee. I wouldn't know who to tell you. Isaiah Crowell got the touchdowns. But then, what's the name of the rookie running back? Excuse me.
Terrence West got 100 yards on 16 carries. Yeah.
So again, look, all of these little split decisions. That's why if there's a chance, you've got one of these guys that we've got listed in the top 20, stick with these guys. Flex, Lord only knows. Ryan Matthews, don't love him against Seattle. Andre Ellington, short week on the road against the Giants, a very angry Giants team probably, even if they're not that good. Not loving the option.
I think if Ellington if he plays, he's questionable right now, I believe. If he plays, you play him because the Giants.
Hey, lesser teams have made greater runs for the Super Bowl.
Indeed, they have. And then one final name. Let's close out running back discussion here. Is you have overlooked what I think is a must start every week, and that is whoever's RB1 against the Dallas Cowboys, and that is Sean Green this week. I know it sounds crazy. Sean Green last week, 15 carries for 71 yards against at Kansas City, and that's not sexy. I know that, but that's 7.1 points without getting a touchdown. And I think that if you look at this Cowboys team, you know he's their goal line back. He's getting the bulk of the carries. I'm starting Sean Green this week and feeling pretty good about it.
You could tell me like all you've got to do is start Sean Green. And Heidi Klum will hug you and feed you a Choco Taco. Can't make me do it. Can't make me do it.
You've done this too many times to me, Sean Green.
I will not fall victim to Romo's Folly version 2.0. the Green effect. No, thank you.
That was a running back discussion. Let's move on.
The wide receivers this week, a little easier to sort out. There's just not the like there just aren't. We don't have as many. First of all, you obviously start more wide receivers, or at least you can, and a lot of them seem much more sexy in the flexi. There aren't as many that are injured, therefore necessitating a committee like in Cleveland or like in a number of other places, or like in Tennessee where you've got 4 different running backs. I think Demaryius Thomas this week could put up, considering the way that they gave up yards last week to Kendall Wright and to Justin Hunter, and the fact that they have no pass rush and no run defense this week in Kansas City. In Denver, Demaryius Thomas could put up a top 5 wide receiver game all time.
Wow.
He could have the he's getting the ball this week. Peyton's going to force feed him because Julius Thomas got 3 touchdowns last week.
Yes.
Peyton likes to feed those who went hungry the week prior.
And again, Demaryius Thomas had a disappointing game with only, I think, 47, 48 yards, something like that, 40-some yards. But what should be noted is he did lead the team in targets. He had 11 targets. 4 of those targets were in the red zone. This is, like, Demaryius Thomas is going to get his. He absolutely will. And I still think that he's going to end up this season as the top fantasy wideout, period.
Very, very, very comfortable with
Unless, going to the number 2 wide receiver, Calvin Johnson continues his ways. Whew. Oh man, that was fun to watch. That was fun to watch.
Good to see him healthy again too. He's just one of those. He's just one of those guys. Regardless of whether you own him in fantasy or not, I had next to 0 rooting interest Monday night. I needed a couple extra points from Reggie Bush. He didn't get them. I hope you enjoyed getting let off this week. I needed a few extra points from Reggie Bush, but otherwise, I was just watching that game because it was on. I'm a guy, and that was football. Megatron looked phenomenal. He's not hurt. He too also looks like he's taken excellent care of himself. God, the catches, the body control that guy has for a giant like that.
Amazing.
Amazing.
As someone who accidentally ended up with a starting combo of Matt Stafford plus Calvin Johnson, was not what I was planning to do with my draft, and that was a fun game to watch.
Oh, God. I love the double bonus, the QB to wide receiver.
As I cruised to a week 1 points leader, money bonus. Good times.
That's a chip and a carrot in the dip bowl.
Yes, sir.
Nice?
Yes, sir.
Double dipper.
Let's move on. A.J. Green against Atlanta, I think, is an excellent call. Des Bryant, definitely a bounce back week.
Right.
And number 5, Antonio Brown at Baltimore. Antonio Brown, this is his season. He is just fantastic.
Really, and I'd put him top 5 alone just for the flying Hadouken that he gave to the punter.
God.
The Antonio Brown, if nothing else,
the Sparta kick.
The Sparta kick. Some people called it the Daniel LaRusso.
Yeah.
That was, if for no other reason, I'd top 5 him this week just because he made the internet last week.
Oh my God, that's going to be just. It's just such an amazing, years from now, we're like, remember that time Antonio Brown kicked the punter in the face? That's
got a running start.
That's like a Jerome Simpson flip into the end zone. I will always remember that.
Oh, it's fantastic. That's some interesting footwork in the last year or so from Pittsburgh in general, but with Tomlin on the line.
Yeah, indeed. And Antonio Brown stepping out of bounds.
Oh, that's right, and cost them the flat spot last year.
All sorts of fun things. I will say, let's move things on. People are starting these wide receivers. Let's move on to number 8, Cordero Patterson. I think he's a good start. You're starting him every week.
Mike Wallace, last week, earlier you were criticizing Joe Hayden, saying you know what, I'm not so impressed with Hayden Island because he gave up a touchdown last week. He can be had. Look, Darrelle Revis gave up a touchdown to Mike Wallace last week. Maybe it's the week 1 blues. Maybe it's some of these guys are poised for better seasons.
Ironically, the play that Darrelle Revis got blown past on a double move was not the play that he gave up a touchdown on.
No, but one where he actually swatted the ball into Mike Wallace's hands. Cordero Patterson, 100 yards on the ground last week, several receptions as well. So now you add him to Adrian Peterson against the Patriots defense that was gashed, sliced, and diced last week. He's looking pretty meaty. The only question is, who gets Revis this week? And I think Greg Jennings is going to get Revis, and that's why I like Cordero Patterson much more.
Now, Revis played 65 defensive snaps last week. 64 of them were on the left side of the defense. So I think it's just a matter of where do the Vikings want to move Patterson around to get him the ball.
And they move him around much more.
He's constantly in motion.
Right.
So I think it's not worrying about being on Revis Island is a real consideration. Play that fantastic guy. Let's move into the bottom half of the top 20 and then get into some sleeper talk before we run out of time for wide receivers. Brandon Marshall jumps out to me at 16. Really? You don't think he's going to get his against the Niners?
How did Dez do last week against the Niners?
Not fantastic, but that was also with Tony Romo throwing the ball to the other team most of the game.
He did, and he does have Smoke and Jay Cutler and a better offensive line. He's also a little hurt. Right now he's currently listed as probable. Alshon's questionable. Now, if Alshon is out, then then I would probably bump him up a few spots, but I don't know. I just got a feeling.
The good old hunch and gut working its magic.
Good old Hunchy LaRue over here. Old Guts McClanahan. If he has a top 10 week, it's going to be against a team that does not yield a lot of top 10 wide receiver weeks.
So I'm going to say targets and tendencies would tell me that Brandon Marshall should be much higher than 16. I will buy your argument if he's not getting into the end zone. So
hey, in a 0.5 PPR, he's a natural start anyways.
Yeah.
And at number 16, he's obviously low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2. I'd flex him. I'd certainly WR2 him. I just would temper my expectations. I think a guy like Roddy White in Cincinnati, with top coverage probably going Julio Jones' way, might actually outpoint Brandon Marshall without much difficulty.
And at the bottom of the top 20 is a man that I've invested in a couple teams. Michael Floyd had himself a nice game against the Chargers.
Finally looks like someone was all grows up. What a beautiful baby.
And getting those looks at the detriment of Larry Fitzgerald.
Just watching Larry, it might almost soon be time for the what are we going to do about Grandpa conversation with Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah, it's time to
looks like Larry Fitzgerald.
It's time to take old Yeller out back and
Whoa!
No, not yet. He's.
I know, but even like this guy wearing the number 12, which is what I think Andre Roberts used to wear. I think his name's John Brown.
John Brown.
Little tiny human being.
Caught himself a touchdown.
Had more receptions, more yards, and more touchdowns than Larry Fitzgerald. This is the world we live in, sir.
Yeah.
It's weird.
We're all getting older, Nick.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. You were talking about making sure you go to karaoke and get home before 10 so you could avoid a karaoke hangover.
This is true.
Look at old people, new fantasies.
Yes. Sleepers. You've got a couple sleepers you want to talk about.
I do. This week, Julian Edelman, last week had a great first half. Went 6 for 96 on the day. Obviously, Brady is going to be probably going to be under more pressure because of the cream cheese-like consistency of his offensive line and the pressure Mike Zimmer is going to put on him. That's going to put an increased. Probably you can increase your outlooks for both Shane Vereen as a running back or flex, and definitely with Edelman as well. He completely Houdini'd in the second half, and the Patriots definitely knew the game was over when Brady airmailed him on a long pass, which he's really good at doing now all the time.
He really is.
Terrence Williams, if they double cover Dez, look for that. Marcus Colston, and Rod Streeter had himself a nice little week last week, receiving passes thrown at him by Derek Carr and even scored.
Yeah, I don't know about having a Raider on my team, though.
Why?
I have a rule. I don't play a Raider unless the bye week demands it.
You have an only play Raiders if there's a bye week policy.
And I have, like, no one else to fill that spot. And, might I add, it works pretty great.
Well, I mean, you've been reasonably successful with it, but like, you know, what's wrong with 5 for 80 and a touch? They're already down a Clowney in Houston, so you got to figure maybe there'll be a little less intensity from that defense. I don't know. I've seen worse flex options.
2 players I want to talk about missing from your top 20.
Go ahead.
One is DeAndre Hopkins, who I'm happily starting this week.
Sleeper.
I think that he had a great week 1, and he's entering that territory where I think he might be a must-play every week. So
It's year 2. It's Utah. Give me 2.
Yep. And then Victor Cruz not on your list, and I think that's just fine.
I do too. Go home. Go eat your Campbell's chicken soup.
Do you know that he had 2 catches last week, which is the same number of passes from Eli Manning that the Lions defense caught?
Actually, no. He threw 3.
Oh, sorry, for 24 yards, right? Yeah. No.
3 interceptions, 2 catches to him. There were more passes thrown to Detroit than there were to Victor Cruz.
Oof, man. Yeah, that is not a good thing. All right, let's move on from wide receivers.
And I believe tight ends.
Tight ends, my favorite subject. You've got Julius Thomas at the top of your rankings. I don't think I can argue about that after 3 touchdowns in week 1. By the way, totally saved a game in which I was up against Marshawn Lynch, and that was a very nice.
I think Julius Thomas tilted a lot of fantasy scales to and fro people's favor on Sunday night. I watched one. I had a friend over the house who literally had like a 20-something odd point lead and watched that, just like Yahoo had him as a 99% favorite entering the game, and watched it be eclipsed and lost right there.
Yep. Delightful.
Just watched all the same. Just like watch the hourglass crack and all the same. Like, why there's a crack in the airlock? No, and just slowly lost oxygen.
I've been unfair. I will say that I was down on Rob Gronkowski before the season. I might still be right about him only playing 10 games by the time the season's out, but I will say it was really impressive that he played 30-odd offensive snaps, ran 25 or 26 routes, and got 10 targets and a touchdown. Rob Gronkowski is the man in that offense.
Can you believe I'm about to say the following? If only Tom Brady wasn't his quarterback last week.
Oh, man.
I should just take the mic off, I'm going to stand in the corner and cry the rest of the show.
You might as well stay in that corner because there are going to be angry Patriots fans lined up outside to murder you.
I know, and we might be 0-2 after Sunday.
Vernon Davis.
Ooh, what a week.
2 touchdowns in week 1, and he has just been a touchdown machine over the last 2 years now. 3 years. He just gets in the end zone. And
he does.
We talk about the relationship that Colin Kaepernick has with Michael Crabtree, but really, like, Kaepernick becoming the starter there has done wonders for Vernon Davis too. He had a good season with Alex Smith too, but
of course,
wow.
But usually when the stats have it that whenever Vernon Davis is on the field, whenever Michael Crabtree is on the field, that means that Vernon Davis's targets usually go down by 2.5 to almost 3 per game. Yet last week, you know what it was? They played the Cowboys. They played the Cowboys, who just don't know how to cover anyone. Nobody. Well, who told me one of the offensive linemen could run for a touchdown? I had no idea he could catch a pass. Oh, Dallas. You can't. You know, you actually can't spell Dallas Cowboys without LOL.
This is true. You'd have to move some letters around. But.
It's in there. Yeah. There's a law in there. Don't you worry. There's always a law in Dallas Cowboys.
Zach Ertz is your 5th tight end, and man, if you ended up with Zach Ertz in your draft, you got him in like the 9th round, you got it 8th round, you've got to be really happy right now. Great week 1. I was worried about Brent Selleck getting in the way. No, Zach Ertz is going to be the man there.
I said during our draft show that though I could see a tendency for possibly reaching for him, not to temper expectations that he was the guy I had targeted as possibly having the Rob Gronkowski 2011 year. 2nd year, big guy, big target. Big part of the offense, and I think his numbers are only going to increase. Wouldn't be surprised if we're mentioning him as the number 4 or even number 3 tight end within a couple weeks' time.
I agree.
And if the Ravens just were not, you know, a hot, syrupy mess right now, you know, both emotionally and literally on the field.
Couldn't happen to a team more deserving.
Seemed like such a great group of guys. Dennis Pitta was targeted 15 times. You want to talk about just change your name to like Binky McSafety. 15 targets from Flacco.
Steve Smith also got 15 targets. That's what happens when you throw the ball 62 times in a game. Gosh. And to Joe Flacco's credit, he did complete 29 of them. So great job, Joe.
Yeah.
Looking good.
That $20 million, $20.1 million, well spent.
Let's go to the last 5 here. I don't have too many. Because with tight ends, what are we talking about? 7 points? You know, hey, I got 7 points on my tight end, fine, whatever.
What is it when you don't have a stud tight end, when you don't have one of these 5 or 6 who you know is going to get you at least 8, possibly 15 or more? What is it that you look for? You just want, like, just get me 6 points. Yeah. Just catch 4 passes for 50 yards.
So I think that the one guy I think might be a little bit low is Kyle Rudolph going up against the Patriots. I don't have a ton of confidence in the Patriots' ability to cover tight ends, going off of mostly what you've said about the Patriots' defense. Right. And even though Charles Clay had kind of a quiet day against the Pats, Kyle Rudolph didn't get a ton of targets in week 1, but did get into the end zone. I think we're going to see a lot more of Kyle Rudolph in the end zone as the season goes on.
Someone's going to have to remind the Patriots that it gets better because we're bullying them this week.
Yes, sir.
Well, they kind of deserved it. I'll tell you somebody else who I think, Larry Donnell. That is not just the name of somebody you haven't spoken to at work, America. That's not just the name of your neighbor. That's the guy who won the job at tight end for the New York Giants. Got a lot of targets, made some big catches for him last week.
Never heard of him until week 1.
Never heard of him until I put his name on the paper until Monday night. Once again, not even sure he's a real person, but apparently computers tell me so. And if it's on the internet, I know it to be true. Sleeper this week, thought about even putting him in the rankings, Niles Paul. Not a jazz guitarist, actually a human being that catches passes. Washington Redskins.
Okay, yeah.
Filling in for Jordan Reed.
Okay, now I'm starting to see it.
Who has a hamstring issue and a concussion history, but his hamstring is the problem now. Jacksonville gave up all those yards to Zach Ertz. Niles Paul. That's not just what people suffer from when they leave Africa before they get shots.
I'm not feeling it. I'm not rolling the dice on someone who I've never heard of. Don't know how he's going to fit in the offense. Don't know if he has any sort of rapport with Robert Griffin III. I would rather double down on my Deshaun Jackson investment, which, by the way, I did not make. But I don't think that this guy's coming out of nowhere enough for me to invest in him starting. Like, I would rather spot start Martellus Bennett or.
I bet you could pick him up if you don't like your flex options or if it's a 2 tight end league. Not that there are a whole lot of them, but I'm just saying you could probably get him off the waivers on the real cheap because most people think Niles Paul is someone who writes poems.
Yes. All right, that's tight ends. Let's wrap things up with defense.
Give him the D.
Yeah, give him the D.
Yeah, give him the D.
There's not again, it's week 1. I don't know the shape of things. We don't know who's going to take a pick 6 to the house. It's hard for me to say this is wrong or this is right or I disagree with that. But I think the Niners against the Bears, I don't know about that. Just because I think that might be reacting a little bit too much to the Cowboys, at Tony Romo throwing them the ball so many times.
Could be a reactionary ranking. That is one of the only ones that I actually did sort of like go bounce around and check on some other spots just to see kind of like, what are the kids saying? What are you guys talking about? What's going on, guys? A lot of people are bullish on San Francisco this week. If anything, perhaps I should have made the Denver defense the #1 play this week. Pretty much owned in all standard formats across all your veritable users in the fantasy world. and all of your sites. But Denver could be the beneficiaries of a lot of Alex Smith pod turnovers.
See,
Never know.
For me, it's when I'm picking up a defense, and when I'm looking at my defense, I'm looking at who's playing a team with a lousy offense and a crappy quarterback who doesn't move around very well. And for me, that team that jumps out on paper is the St. Louis Rams offense, and they're going up. They're playing at Tampa. That's a quality defense. So for me, Tampa's not even in your rankings. I think that's inexcusable, sir.
Excuse me.
And I think that Tampa might be a top 5 play. It's just one of those things where like the Rams are going to be that bad every week.
They really are. They showed their hand early.
Yeah.
They got drunk, fell asleep at the table, and everyone saw their cards.
Otherwise, I think that the Texans are, of course, a great play. The rookie quarterback with the Raiders there, and yeah, I like the Arizona defense a lot, even though they're playing, at the Giants. The Giants aren't particularly good at home.
Giants aren't particularly good. that, sir, is a fact. Look who snuck in there, Minnesota. Normally, you would not think a team that most people didn't think was that good, but might actually be sleeper pretty good. They might have some sleeper goodness about them.
I think that we're going to see the Mike Zimmer effect, and they obviously went crazy on the Rams as most defenses will do. But I think that Everson Griffin is a lot better than we gave him credit for when they signed the huge contract with the Vikings.
Yep.
And I think that Mike Zimmer has made something that may make us wish that we had the Vikings defense.
And also, the Patriots kind of have to prove themselves. If they continue with that porous line play, and there's a lot of indecision and unusual play calling, if it's a head scratcher, kid, Minnesota might not be a bad waiver wire pickup for the D this week.
I was actually I picked up Denver, surprisingly enough, as a free agent today in one of my leagues.
They were available?
They were. It's crazy.
Why would you enter a fantasy league with children? That's not.
I kicked those kids' ass.
You really did. It feels fun. It's like the Billy Madison dodgeball game, isn't it? It's a good time. Most of the rest of the defenses, look, you can just put them in a hat. They're in a boggle thing. Just shake them up and grab one, and you'll probably get your standards 8 or 9 points.
Again, stick with the team that you drafted unless you drafted a really dumb team.
Right.
And just kind of
unless you drafted the Redskins defense, then you know what? You deserve it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'd say the jury's out on defenses until we get a better feel for what we're seeing as we go through the season.
'Tis only week 2. Now, how about some reader, listener, watcher, viewer person questions?
Let's move on to questions. I've got a couple.
All right.
That I've got from Twitter.com. People have asked this question. This one is from @HermsPerm. This is a bit of a instead of a specific one, it's more of a theoretical question.
Okay.
That I like.
It's more global.
Talking about strategy in general. @HermsPerm said, I'm favored to win by 35. Bigger troll move, start Ray Rice at running back or Ray McDonald at flex. And first of all, I don't like the undertones of that. Like, hey,
I don't like his tone. I don't like his tone in general. Block Herms Perm.
Yeah. Getting aside from that, the predictions, don't get cocky. Do not get cocky. Always play your best team. That's foolish. That's foolish talk. Don't start guys who suck or have been dropped for horrible crimes. That don't have fun with. Like treat this like a competition. Go out to win because when you just mess around and you're like, I get whatever, I can start whoever and still win this game. And then suddenly Demaryius Thomas only shows up for 40-odd yards and somebody's random tight end goes off with 3 touchdowns and you're wondering, oh, maybe I should have played my best running back.
Look at that. Des Bryant didn't score again, but the guy who I'm playing has Mercedes Lewis, who got 3 touchdowns against the Redskins. FML OMG. Yeah, I hope that happens to Hermsperm.
Yeah, take it seriously. Our boy Alex Horton, love him, good friend of ours.
Yes.
At least on the internet.
Right.
He asks, Vereen or Fred Jackson in the flex position?
If it is a half-point PPR league, the answer is Shane Vereen because he is going to be an integral point of the offense this week, especially considering that there is the American cheese-like consistency to the Patriots' offensive line as of right now, and Brady probably will be under pressure. So I would look for Vereen to be a larger part. Fred Jackson, once again, great. Got that big 40-yard run at the end of the game to set up the Bills for the big win. We don't know. It could be a 100% CJ Spiller. He's in a committee.
Yeah.
So is C.J. Spiller. So is Vereen, but he's not in a committee when it comes to catching passes.
It's true. It's absolutely true. With I would say Vereen as well. Mm-hmm. And I don't have the right perspective because I have avoided Fred Jackson and C.J. Spiller like the plague ever since I had C.J. Spiller his rookie year and maybe his second year too. And then I was just like, no, I don't like doing this because I think he's an exciting, explosive player, and I just got real tired of Fred Jackson being up in my business.
Yeah. Plagues I tend to avoid, like I won't even fly to those countries, let alone even consider it. I would avoid Fred Jackson sort of like the same way, like, you know, like when there are people in the park or something and they ask you like, hi, do you have a free minute, sir? And we all fake a phone call or just dodge them like that. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how I would treat Fred Jackson. I'd pretend to take a phone call around him as he was asking me if he'd start me.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to have a bad game. It's just, it's not worth the stress and the headache for me. I just like, and I said this in another fantasy football show by the name of Keepers that will be out tomorrow. Folks, check it out. It's great.
SBNation.com.
SBNation.com.
It'd be weird if you did it somewhere else and just snuck a plug.
It really would be weird. But, you know, like the only thing that you can do with the Bills running backs because every single week, this guy or this guy. And what you should do is just wait for them to go off, score 2 touchdowns in a game. You probably had him on your bench because that's when they do it.
Right.
And then you're like, hey, this guy has value now, and you flip him, even for a crappy guy, just one that gives you fewer headaches.
Mm-hmm. You know, our Sundays are already stressful enough. Like, do I go wings or quesadilla? Am I going to get the chicken sandwich or the burger?
It's very stressful times.
Light beer or brown wine? I don't need those questions in my life. That's the thing.
Did you just say brown wine?
Yeah, that's bourbon.
Oh, okay.
Come on, you're a fan. Yeah. I call you Eagle Rare. Come on, Ufford.
All right, let's go to the next question. The next story. Watching my stories. Zach Dean asked us which 3 to start. Okay. Oh boy, so many names here. Reggie Bush, Trent Richardson, Knowshon Moreno, Chris Ivory, Carlos Hyde, or Mark Ingram. This is not helping listeners or viewers because they're like, nobody has this exact scenario. Here's the 3 to start. Chris Ivory, yes.
Yep.
Mark Ingram, yes. And then Knowshon Moreno.
Not loving Reggie Bush because of the split backfield. Oh, God,
and they're playing at
backfields.
Carolina with a tough front 7.
Right.
Trent Richardson is a sit every week. Carlos Hyde, who we both adore, but is sitting behind Frank Gore. Just play those RB1s. Play the guys who are starting. Chris Ivory, Mark Ingram, and Knowshon.
You're going with Broshan. Yeah. Even though Miller... what I found most interesting about them signing Knowshon Moreno was it seems like he's just like a more successful, slightly veteran facsimile of Lamar Miller. They look like the exact same person, save for the names and numbers and the flowing amount of tears that come from Knowshon's helmet. But otherwise... it just seems like they signed a better Lamar Miller.
Maybe because they had Lamar Miller, they're like, we need a better
version. We like you, we need you to be better. So since we can't make you do that, we'll find a better you.
Yeah, I don't know.
I wish I could do that with myself sometimes. See, I'd go with Hyde. I think Hyde's going to score again this week.
All right.
I think Hyde is going to start setting a precedent, and he's going to start pushing Gore for carries. And that actually may have a very positive effect on the 49ers, who supposedly are losing the locker room with Jim Harbaugh.
Excellent.
I know. Yes, your milkshake of Schadenfreude, I drink it up. Oh no, I guess he'll have more time to buy $8 khakis. I think Hyde's just going to he's going to force the hand of the 49ers and make them play him because they got him in the second round. He just fell to them. There are so many teams kicking themselves for not grabbing Carlos Hyde earlier in the draft, and there are teams that are kicking themselves for not taking Kelvin Benjamin as well.
Ooh.
WR1 in Cincinnati.
My goodness,
Carolina.
90-plus yards
Big
and
boy.
a touchdown. Well, blanketed.
Yes.
Blanketed.
From Derek Anderson.
Jeez.
Who actually had a beer in his other hand. It's not funny. It's not funny. Think it's funny?
It was an impressive game, and I was wrong on Kelvin Benjamin. I was like, he's not polished yet. He's not going to get separation. He does not need separation.
Mm-mm.
He's really good, and
he's a huge human being.
I feel kind of dumb. So we've actually got a question from Mr. or Ms. Pure Ferocity. Says Jeremy Maclin versus Indy or Kelvin Benjamin versus Detroit.
What a good problem. That must be
That's a nice problem.
That's a good team.
I would try to find a way to start both those guys.
Oh, that absolutely is a 72-degree evening. Red or white, honey? It's still warm enough, but I wouldn't mind it. Wow. Kelvin Benjamin with a pretty good matchup against a less than spectacular Detroit secondary. I got to go Macklin.
I got to go Macklin, too.
It's going to hurt to sit Kelvin Benjamin.
The Colts defense and the Eagles offense are two things that go together so well. Mm-hmm. And Kelvin Benjamin, despite being very obviously an incredible rookie wideout, is still a rookie wideout. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to go with the Chip Kelly offense. When in doubt, I just go Chip Kelly.
The Indianapolis defense is the shot of pickle juice to the Jameson that is Philadelphia. And the Philadelphia defense is like the nice pink Himalayan salt that's going to go right on top of that chocolate and peanut butter that is the Indy offense. They're both like, you guys don't really look like you should go together, but you're delicious.
That was quite a run of food and drink metaphor.
I'm starving. And you know what? It's almost 5 o'clock.
All right, well,
somewhere.
I know what we're doing in 5 minutes. Until then, let's answer some more questions.
All right.
M. Duffster says Keenan Allen or Edelman?
I don't know if I can. It's hard to answer a question of someone who's got a nickname. Hey, the Duffster's got a Q. So it's Keenan Allen or
Julian Edelman. Keenan Allen, of course, is at home, but the Seahawks are in town. Edelman's on the road in Minnesota.
Now, you and I were discussing before the show. I have a Keenan Allen. I have Allen's conundrum. It's not like Romo's folly. Allen's conundrum, which would be, do I start Keenan Allen against Seattle? Most people probably would see Seattle coming and just throw up the immediate red light, the double stop hands. But like you said,
Richard Sherman is only playing, he's isolated on the defense's left side. Yep. So it's only when Keenan Allen's on the right that he's going to have to worry about Richard Sherman. And we saw with the Packers, Randall Cobb and Jordy Nelson both had excellent fantasy, not excellent, but very good fantasy games in week 1.
Good enough. They lived up to their projections.
For a game in which Aaron Rodgers only had 9 fantasy points, Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb both put up 9+ 11 points.
Right.
Those are good games. And I think that Keenan Allen, still a good start. You drafted him in the 3rd round?
Mm-hmm. 3rd or 4th round.
Yeah, maybe middle of 2nd. I don't know.
Yeah.
Late 2nd.
He had a tough matchup last week. Peterson is a different kind of cornerback.
Yeah, Hound's the top wideout.
And he was good too. He was all over him last week. I'm not as afeared of starting Keenan Allen this week.
Yeah, I'd go with Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
Julian Edelman, unless it's like PPR and you've got a good feeling about him.
Right.
I would go with Keenan Allen. He's more likely to find the end zone.
What are we looking at from Edelman this week? 8 for 80.
8 for 80.
Okay, in a PPR with standard 1 point for 20 for 20 yards. Great. There's 8 points. 8 to 10 points. Keenan Allen has the better chance of giving you 12 to 15 points this week.
Precisely.
Higher upside.
Yep. Here's another wide receiver question.
Okay.
Mark Conklin says, should I start DeAndre Hopkins, Kelvin Benjamin, or Larry Fitzgerald?
Larry Fitzgerald, you should start to stop having on your fantasy team. Because he's not going to be that productive.
No.
He wasn't even targeted till the second half.
Correct.
And he had a catch. The Cardinals fans cheered for him because he caught the ball.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with him. They just don't throw it to him anymore.
No.
He's just not. He's become almost like a Hall of Fame ready decoy.
Yeah, I'll buy that. So Hopkins or Benjamin? DeAndre Hopkins, of course, is playing the Raiders in Oakland.
You're pretty hype on him.
I'm bullish on Hopkins. I don't know if I'm more bullish on Hopkins than Benjamin, though.
Yeah, I love taking the temperature. And Kelvin, let's go. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go Kelvin Benjamin.
I think
he's a 1. You know what? If nothing else, I'll take a 1 over a 2.
That's a very good point.
So many people in Midtown have said that before.
And that's. And that's enough to sway me. I'll go with you on that one.
Yeah.
Ooh, gosh. I just got a whiff of this question, and if that's why I'm wrinkling my nose. Joed Zero says, start Cutler or Palmer this week.
Ooh, someone really did leave a watermelon in the car for 3 days and just opened the door, didn't they? Wow. Cutler or Palmer this week?
Jay Cutler at San Francisco or Carson Palmer in New York. New Jersey.
Yeah. Well, whatever. I'll be dead before we call us the New Jersey Giants. Carson Palmer did not look like a dead person throwing the football last week. He actually moved pretty well. Passes were reasonably on target. It's like It's like going to that local restaurant where it's like, you know, hey, it only took them 30 minutes to bring out the food.
Another food.
There were no hairs in it.
Another food metaphor. I'm going with Jay Cutler.
You got to go with Cutler against San Francisco. All right.
Yeah.
With the better surrounding talent.
Listen. We're overvaluing. I guess
San Francisco defense.
We're overvaluing it because Tony Romo just threw them the ball nonstop in the first half.
And also cross-continental flight in New York, 1 o'clock start time. West Coast teams oftentimes have a difficult time. I'll tell you, if anyone is going to be your point getter this week for Arizona, it's not going to be Ellington. May not even be Floyd or Palmer. It probably is going to be their defense.
I agree.
Hey,
nice.
There it was.
We got time for one, maybe two more questions.
Oh, we can sneak in one more. Good.
Let's see. Ooh, I like this one. I like an open-ended question here.
What is the meaning of this?
RG Threesis says, who is...
He was so excited when he got that name.
True name. RG Threesis says, who is a good buy low in PPR right now?
Who's a good buy low in PPR right now?
Yeah. I'm going to get the ball rolling here. I don't know if it's a low buy right now, but Andrew Hawkins of Cleveland, 8 catches on 10 targets in week 1, 87 yards, and Jordan Cameron just got an injured shoulder. He's going to be the really only competent wide receiver that they've got right now. I like him as a PPR guy. I'm not sure if he's probably already owned in your league, but earlier in the week he was only owned in like 25% of Yahoo leagues. I'd go with Andrew Hawkins on that one.
I'll give you 3.
Okay.
Greg Jennings was not drafted very highly, if at all, in a lot of leagues, and actually showed up last week and scored.
Yeah.
Might be an integral part of the offense, especially now that Matt Castle is playing a reasonable facsimile of competent quarterback for the Minnesota Football Vikings.
Okay.
I also told you earlier, I like Rod Streeter. Hey,
yeah,
5 catches. Derek Carr is not playing terribly. You couldn't expect him to go win the first game of his life, even in New York. Not to say that the Jets are that great. And I told you, Niles Paul. He went 4 for 48 when he came into the. I'm telling you.
No, stop.
Why would I lie to you?
He's looking to buy low. He's not looking for stuff that's free.
He is not your moldy cabinet on the sidewalk. I'm telling you. Pick up Niles Paul. You can thank me later. You can thank me in either one of these 2 cameras. I don't know which one to look at any given moment, but I do know that those 3 guys will get you some good PPR and excellent free waiver wire value.
Don't pick up Niles Paul. That is it for this week's episode. That is Nick Stevens on Twitter. He's at Ahoy Nick Stevens. I'm Matt Ufford at Matt Ufford. Folks, we enjoy you watching us live. We enjoy you watching us on YouTube. If you're one of those podcast folks, we are now on iTunes.
It feels good, doesn't
Fantasy War Room from SB Nation is on iTunes and also Blog Talk Radio. Please check us out. Talk to us on Twitter. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Keep in touch. Good luck. God bless. Kisses.
Hey, thanks for watching this SB Nation video. If you liked it, do us a solid and click that thumbs up button. And for more from SB Nation, subscribe to our channel. And while you're at it, how about watching one of these videos over here? Come on, what else are you doing today? Click it. Go.